So today we're going to look at what we should have in a spare parts toolkit. A spare parts toolkit doesn't have to be huge. A lot of coaches carry around something bigger, but if you're just getting the bare basics, this is good for about 90 or 95% of the stuff that you're going to encounter in the water. A good combination wrench or monkey wrench to handle top nuts and all different size bolts. It's handy if it's got also a little cutout to use for like a 7/16 or a 10mm or something as well. Drop that in there. Bungee cord, because you never know what you might run into, so having one of those handy never hurts. Some zip ties, and I like bigger zip ties rather than little ones, but if you have just a whole bunch of small ones, you can always connect them together to make a bigger zip tie. And you could use that on a foot stretcher, you could use it on a steering mechanism, on a number of different things that you might run into. Wrenches, of course, and it's great to have wrenches that serve more than one purpose, so 7/16 or 11mm and 3/8 or 10mm. So we actually have a 7/16 wrench here and 10mm wrench over there. So that's a Cobalt wrench. You can get it from Lowe's for about $6-7. And you can see the difference between this and a normal combination wrench, how the splines are just a little bit different, and it allows it to handle different size nuts there. And you want to have 2 of each wrench at least. So we got 2 10mm and 2 7/16. So if we had to do a wing rigger, we could tighten from top and bottom. Got an extra top nut and top nut washers and lock washer to go along with it. So that'd be for a Vespoli. For a Hudson top nut or some of the metric boats, you might just need a standard bolt, so like a 7/16 bolt or a metric bolt. A foot stretcher or footboard bolt here. You can see how it slides into the track there, and I like to keep it just all assembled, so you have your part that's going to slide into your foot stretcher track, and then your washers, lock washer, and wing nut. Some plastic wing nuts, in case you ran out of washers. You can use plastic wing nuts without washers typically, and they can last quite a while, anywhere from a couple practices to a whole season. Lots of poppers or spacers, since they typically fall overboard and get lost in the water. And although they're different for different manufacturers or different pins, there's the 2 different sizes of pins with blue spacers or black spacers. You can usually use these poppers on really anything. You just force them on and they'll stay on pretty well. An extra bottom nut, so that would be for a Vespoli pin. And of course you'd want a washer to go along with it in case that ever came off, so you could keep your pin attached to the rigger and make it back. A little carabiner, because you never know what you might need that for. It's always handy to have something like that. For your foot stretchers, a little wing nut for your Vespoli foot stretcher in the middle, and then the sides on the carbon foot stretchers usually use these longer little finger bolts. You don't want to row without all 3 of these items in place, 2 of these little finger bolts and 1 of these little wing nuts in the middle. The lifting up on the footboard from the athlete's rowing will usually crack the phenolic plate, and then you'll have to replace that whole plate. If the shoe comes loose from the plate, these little screws here, they're the same with all manufacturers, so just a couple extras of those, little Phillips head. An extra metal wing nut, metal nut, and that's a nylock nut with a little nylon side, so you wouldn't have to use a lock washer with it. You could just use a flat washer in this nut. Nice big wide washer for maybe like a backstay bolt on a wing rigger boat or something like that to distribute the load more. Lots of extra flat washers, and some extra nuts and lock washers. And it's important to note too, say you had a Hudson top nut that came out, and they're typically 3/4 inch long bolts. This is an inch long bolt. We could still use this. You just want to stack a whole bunch more washers onto it, and that would take up the extra space and effectively make it a 3/4 inch bolt, so that you don't have to carry a whole bunch of extra equipment or extra spare parts. Just carry the bare bones what you need and then kind of adapt it. And the last thing is this little star nut, or the part that goes onto the oar lock. I guess not our last thing, but that part goes right there. Sometimes these do spin off, and pretty rare, but if it did spin off, then you would have another one with you so you could continue rowing. What they do, you can see here how the threads are actually crushed and damaged on this one specifically, so that you can, so that it'll prevent this star nut from coming off. So if you reinstall a star nut, you want to take a pair of pliers or something, and once you get the new nut on, and kind of muck up those threads a little bit to prevent it from spinning off. Recommend carrying an extra oar lock with some extra pitch spacers. And these little pitch spacers, typically what will happen if you lose a top nut and the oar lock pops up, you might lose your top pitch spacer because it would slide up the pin, and then as it slides back down, it would pop this off and float away in the water. So those just push in right there. You want to pay attention to the numbers. This is a 7-1. Most of the ones that are pretty common on just about any boat is a 4-4, and you just want to pay attention to the direction it is to keep the pitch the same on the oar lock. And that's about it for spare parts. One important thing to note is if you have like a magnetized screwdriver or some sort of magnet, you want to just check your spare parts kit. Make sure there's nothing magnetic in there. Anything that's magnetic will rust. It's not stainless steel or not good quality stainless steel. So make sure that you're using only stainless steel parts on your boats, especially if you're in saltwater, but even in freshwater it'll rust and make quite a mess. So that's the basic spare parts kit. You can adapt it any way you want. Different manufacturer boats, you might have to carry some different things, but at least this will get you started. And then just from experience, whatever you're missing on the water, add to your kit, and you can let it grow kind of over time. Try to keep it small and light so it's not too big to lug around. Any questions, shoot us a note on the website or leave a comment. Thanks for watching.